You're listening to Kizuki, the podcast. I'm Mae Yoshikawa, and I define the Japanese concept of Kizuki as the following. Kizuki. 1. A moment of epiphany, an aha of realization or insight which opens the knower to a new dimension of truth that was formerly unknown. 2. Steps in an incremental growth of awareness, resulting in a movement from ignorance to greater awareness of the bigger picture. A kind of knowing that cannot be undone, that cannot be unrealized. As a longtime yoga and meditation practitioner, a world traveler, and curious self-explorer, I'm obsessed with Kizukis. Listen on each week for inspiring and enlightening stories that may just tip you over for your next aha. On this week's episode, Domino Kizuki number 5, Daddy Issues and Money. The other day, I received an interesting prompt. How would you explain your relationship with money? And today, I want to invite you to take a moment, maybe even pause this episode, to give yourself some time to answer that with me. Because this could potentially be life-transforming. For the sake of giving a concrete example, for me, some of the things that came up were, well, I always get by, but money doesn't feel trustworthy, or the flow of money doesn't feel trustworthy. Like it could be gone. A sense of scaredness about it, of not having enough, or having enough and then losing it. It was almost like I had abandonment fears around it. Like it just didn't feel secure and steady. And for a long time, I thought these were simply money issues, like everyone has issues, mental patterns, and underlying belief systems. And then I learned that I just hadn't seen the root of it all. But I recently saw something I couldn't unsee. Because the following prompt was this. Now, if you pulled money out of that equation and just took the qualities of that relationship, insecure, abandonment fears, untrustworthy, unsteady, where or with whom in your life did you first feel those things? Sigh. Because sure enough, my answer was my father. Boom, right? That's when my jaw kind of dropped. Because nobody had asked me about money. They had simply asked me to describe the relationship. And when I removed the word money from the equation and looked at the qualities of the relationship, it was just so revealing. Once I saw it, everything started to make a lot more sense. But before I continue, let me say this. Because this episode, or any other episode, it's not at all about blaming my father. He was a human being like we all are. And I wholly know that he did his best, given his circumstances, upbringing, and issues. He had strengths, wonderful strengths, and he had limitations. He had his own life experience and conditioning. All of us are part of this generational learning and unwinding from this conditioning. So this episode is centered around understanding how a child's nervous system makes meaning, because we're all meaning-making machines. We take experiences and quietly draw conclusions about the world. And from these conclusions, we build mechanisms that would help us to navigate the experience before us. But the thing is that those conclusions and mechanisms can follow us for decades without even realizing it. When I closely looked at my relationship with money, I started noticing something interesting. Like, what do we want or hope for from money, really? Because it's not the money itself. It's more like security, safety, protection, freedom, relief, or a sense of trust. Now think about what a child often wants or needs from a parent. They're all the same things. This feeling that everything is going to be okay, that we can be safe and secure, that knowing can be steady. The overlap is striking. And it made me wonder, had I unconsciously projected my daddy issues onto money? As I sat with this question, another realization emerged. For much of my life, there has been this underlying feeling of I'm not enough or it's not good enough. Like not enough certainty, not enough safety or security, and therefore not enough room for error. And if you've listened to previous episodes in this Domino Kizuki series, you'll know that I've been uncovering all sorts of unconscious patterns. The endurer, the carrier, learning to sit beside your pain, allowing myself to feel anger. And now this. Because when I looked underneath the money patterns, I discovered that the issue was never actually about money. I wonder what word you might use, but for me, it feels like the core issue was about trust. Because as a child who couldn't fully experience consistent emotional safety and trust, I think I learned to scan for risk and danger, scanning for certainty, for signs that everything will be okay. And this overvigilance was something that continued in me long after my childhood was over and long after I stopped living with my parents. And now I'm seeing that maybe it was somewhat of a costume change where this child's longing for security and safety, in my case, mostly from my father, I somehow projected it onto money. It put on a money costume. So while on the surface we might think that this is about our bank account or our wage at work, underneath, it's quite possible that you might be asking a much older question. Am I safe? Can I feel safe? Can I trust life? Will I be okay? Then, here's where things got even more interesting. Because I realized that my relationship with money, it wasn't just about insecurity or this fear of scarcity. It also got tangled up with morality. Because I also became aware of another layer of fear, a fear of becoming bad through money. Have you ever noticed anything like that? And the voice of my internal fear says something like this. What if success changes me? What if more wealth makes me arrogant or entitled? What if having money disconnects me from my heart? What if abundance somehow corrupts me? More often than not, those were the ways money and relationship to money had been modeled before me. So in a deeper sense, I think what I feared wasn't just the money itself. Perhaps I feared becoming those things that I had witnessed and sensed an offness about. And at first glance, those fears seemed noble. But as I sat closely with them, I knew that they were still fear. Perhaps even in the name of loyalty, because many of us carry unconscious loyalties to our families, right? We fear being different from them, different from the ways that were modeled for us. We fear betraying them. We fear surpassing them. We fear becoming something they were not. And at the same time, we fear becoming what hurt us. So we're in this limbo space in between. And somehow, as we grow up and leave our parental home, we project it onto other things, whether projecting it onto life itself or projecting it onto money, because it is one of the primary tools that we use as a source of provision in our lives. And so it is that money gets a bad rap. It gets emotionally charged. It's no longer simply a resource. Instead, it becomes loaded with all of these historical meanings that we unconsciously attach to it. Loaded with these old stories. Not that it came from nowhere, because as a child we witnessed these things, but we should also note that they were a child's conclusion, and perhaps it wasn't the whole story. And so this Kizuki landed like a domino, knocking over everything behind it, and all of the ways thus far that I had interpreted money. And to see in clarity that money is not my father. Money can't abandon me. It also can't approve of me. It can't reject me or even love me or withhold love from me or even determine my worth. Money is not my parent. It's simply a resource and a tool, so long as we don't project those meanings onto it. And the moment I truly saw that, it just felt like this eye-opening moment. It was like I wanted to say, sorry, money. Because, how shitty would it feel if someone projected all of those things onto you and you never had anything to do with it? It was like I was asking it to do a job that it was never designed to do. Like I asked it to be my reassurance, and finally to unlink the meaning of money from my experience and expectation of my father. It just felt so freeing and so clean. For years, I thought I was trying to create financial freedom and security. But I'm also beginning to understand that perhaps the thing that I really wanted to create was emotional safety, a sense of security about living in this world. And they're not the same thing. And so when I finally took that responsibility away from money, there was this softening that at last, money could just be what it actually is. Not proof for me, not proof of my safety or my worth or that I'm loved, just a tool. And as it so goes, strangely enough, that was the moment I started to feel safer, more comfortable. Not because suddenly I had more money, but because I was no longer asking it to be something it could never be. Money wasn't the thing that I didn't or couldn't trust. The trust had been broken somewhere else, much earlier. And once I could finally see that, I could stop trying to heal a father wound through my relationship with money. This unlinking finally set me free. Sometimes the Kizuki, it works like this unlinking. It works like the undoing of a misperception or a meaning that we had misplaced on something. And that realization can be utterly freeing. Thank you for listening. If you missed the recent Kizuki Journaling online session, the on-demand replay is now available at maey.live under On Demand. And if you'd like to be the first to know when the next live session opens, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter at the bottom of maey.live or kizukijournaling.com.